You're listening to TBR Radio Presents, the Dixie Heritage Hour, with your host, the Director of Dixie Heritage, Dr. Ed DeVries.
Today is Thursday, December 27th, and I am in the studio recording what will be tomorrow's, Friday, December 28th, TBR Radio Presents, the Dixie Heritage Hour. And, of course, this will be our last TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Hour broadcast for the year 2018. One of the reasons that I held off to the last minute to record it, as our regular listeners know, we normally record these programs several weeks in advance, is because I wanted to kind of have an end-of-the-year recap, and I wanted to wait and see if there were any big news headlines that were going to break right at the end of the year. So we pushed this as far to the back of the year as we could as far as our recording today. Our guest today is Pat Shannan. Well, actually, we have two guests, but our first guest today is Pat Shannan, investigative journalist, I&I World Report. And Pat has broken some of the biggest stories through the years, and of course, he's also uncovered a lot of the stories that the mainstream media is just afraid to touch, and you'll figure out why as he kind of interjects some things into some of the headlines, and you'll realize why the mainstream media has been afraid to touch a lot of the stuff that Pat has unearthed over the years. What I did is I called Pat today and I said, Pat, let's talk about the big headlines of the year and maybe even give us some predictions of what's going to happen next year. And so that's what Pat and I do. We cover some interesting news stories. And then after that, I picked up the phone again and I called my good friend Paul Blair. Of course, you remember Paul's been on the show here a couple times this year. Paul had played for the Bears back in the 80s, back when they were that Super Bowl shuffle dominating defense. He was one of the integral members of that defense. He was a defensive lineman. He was the one who set things up for the names that we remember to be able to do the things that they did on the field. And so I called Paul today. He's recovering from shoulder surgery. He's at his home in Oklahoma. And I just asked him what his predictions were for the Super Bowl. And he's going to share those with us at the end of the broadcast as well. And so without any further ado, let's go into our phone call with Pat Shannan. No, before we do that, though, let me say this. For those of you who are watching on the internet or watching the stream through the internet website there, you'll see that we've totally changed our show graphics. We're going to have all brand new show graphics for 2019. We're going to take the Dixie Heritage Hour and we're going to crank it up a notch next year. And with that said, let's go into our interview with Pat Shannan.
I don't know any more than anybody else what's coming down. I think that Trump is playing possum, and I just, I think he's throwing red herrings all around. But who knows what's going to happen? We know the dollar's got to collapse. That's inevitable. So what the heck? Is he going to replace the Fed with gold money? I don't know.
Well, Gaddafi tried to do that, and he's dead because of it. So Gaddafi had what was called the gold dinar, and it was ready to launch, and just a short time before it did, of course, we know how that turned out. So,
I still got a couple 100,000.
Okay, I know the stock market. Of course, today's Thursday, and we're recording on Thursday, and so yesterday was Wednesday, the day after Christmas, and the stock market had its biggest day in the history of the stock market, right after what appeared to be, a tanking stock market. So what do you think? You think next year's stock market's going to go ahead and crash, or do you think that the stock market's going to get big again next year?
Well, yesterday's event was just as contrived as a suppression of gold and silver has been over the decades. That was a planned event. They can manipulate anything anytime they want.
Well, I've got a neighbor who for years worked on the stock exchange. And now he's retired here in Florida, and he lives down the street from me and owns several of the houses in our neighborhood. And he rents them out. And he told me that the reason he's in real estate and not in the stock market is because, having worked on the exchange for 30 years, he would never put his money into stocks.
Well, along those lines, on that subject, a few years ago, I was talking to my close and trusted friend who's been a gold and silver broker for 40 odd years. That's the only thing he's ever done since he got out of college. And he's been on the international board. He knows more about the wheelings and dealings that go on there. I had discovered this about 10 years ago, I guess, when it was starting to hit the fan about some of those biggies on Wall Street selling. They had like 100 times more silver and gold certificates, paper out there than they could possibly deliver. I said to him, Tom, how do they continue to get away with this? What if somebody hard-headed as I comes along and says, look, you owe me this, the delivery day was yesterday, let's get on with it. And how do they get away with not delivering? You never guess what he told me. He says they pay it off with more cash. They create the paper out of nothing, and they say, okay, well, we're sorry about that, but here, for the 30,000 you put up, here's 130. And seems to satisfy them because it's the only choice they have, and they take it. And I mean, I learned about a year ago from the same source that there's like 300 times now out there. Paper, undeliverable paper, supposedly certificates for gold and silver that can never be delivered.
You know, I knew there was a fix in there somewhere.
Right. Well, they manipulate the same way that the Fed does everything else. They can create all the money they want to do whatever they want with. So that not only includes paying off politicians for their votes and that sort of stuff, but it also means buying low on the selling short and buying long and all that sort of stuff that they do to suppress the price and keep it where they want it. But the end result is inevitable. It's got to explode. And I have said for the past year or two that when the dollar finally crashes, and it's worth about 1 cent now compared to the 100 years ago when the Fed was opened. So when it finally just hyperinflates into nothing, which I don't think is going to be very long, then we will see gold and silver seek the real value. We don't know what it's going to be measured in, but the real value, many predict, will be at least 10 times what it's showing right now, and some are saying, maybe 50 times. Who knows? It's just we can't know how much paper has been created and slung out there. We know that Obama doubled from 10 trillion to 20 trillion in only 8 years, using that to pay off any kind of corruption he needed, including the covering up of his birth certificate. Oh, man, we are so deep in corruption. I mean, it's Satan's chosen people took over D.C. a long time ago.
Well, you read the book of Revelation, it says the kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. And so shall become is very much future tense, which means that right now, they're not the kingdoms of God, and they're not the kingdoms of Christ. And so whose kingdoms are they?
Well, on that subject, Satan's in charge of the earth, but he's got a commander-in-chief called God Almighty. Q says that however much truth is coming out of that, because we've been waiting too long for what Q's been predicting for a year, but he says there have been like 15 attempts on Trump's life. If that's really true, then it's got to be divine protection. Those guys are too good to miss 15 times.
You know, when Satan was tempting Jesus and he took him up on the mountain, and Satan told him to look down at all the kingdoms of the earth, he said, just, worship me and I'll give them to you. And, Jesus rebuked him and said that, he was only to worship God and so forth, but he never challenged Satan's ownership of those kingdoms. That was a fact, if you will, that he allowed to stand at that moment.
Yes.
And so, the truth is that Jesus could have probably, crushed Satan at that very moment had he wanted to. He could have come down off the cross if he wanted to. There are a lot of things that he's capable of doing.
Sure.
Again, I don't understand why he allows so much evil to reign in the world, but the reality is that it's reigning. And I don't know why, Donald Trump would be the protected one, but yet he appears to be, if anything, it just, I guess, reminds us that God knows what he's doing and we don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Nor can we figure it out. So.
Well, speaking of the good book, Jesus also said, quoted by Matthew, that all things are going to be uncovered. We're going to see it happen. We're going to see all the truths. We're going to see all the lies uncovered. So,
well, one thing that I want to see uncovered is what was in the envelopes that were passed out at George H.W. Bush's funeral.
That is so interesting. I tell you, there have been 3 or 4 people that have come forward with their opinions. Of course, they all use the same videos there. But they're talking about. One guy says, "Why did the sender make sure the wives also received the ominous message? Whoever is responsible for this psyop, it's clear that every part of this drama was fastidiously choreographed for maximum effort." And those things, first of all, I didn't pay much attention to the Bush funeral when it was live because I knew what a liar and a dog he was and how they were going to build him up, and I just didn't want to listen to all the baloney, and so I paid very little attention to it. I walked through the room 2 or 3 times and paused for a minute to see, who was lying at this moment. So I had no idea about these videos that we're now seeing until they came forward a week and 10 days and 2 weeks later. And the comments there, but I was particularly interested in seeing and knowing that Vice President Pence got an envelope, because you may not remember this because it was pretty suppressed and it was not in the news, probably never in the mainstream, but it wasn't even on the internet news 6 months ago or so when the pedophilia story broke, being in Indiana, and at the time Pence was governor, and he was one of the stalwarts, one of the main men. And so I now presume that this is what that envelope had to do, that Pence received. I can't imagine anything else. And someone else pointed out how when Trump entered the room and sat down the row of the seats right ahead of Pence and his wife, they didn't even make eye contact, let alone say hello. While Trump was being friendly to the enemy, Obama and Clinton's there on the front row, didn't even say hello or make eye contact with his own vice president. So there's some consternation there, and I can't imagine Pence getting an envelope for any other reason except, well, the pedophilia may have been going on in Indiana, or apparently was.
So you think then that each of these individuals received an envelope on something that they could be blackmailed for if they didn't participate in whatever the next upcoming scheme is?
Well, I think more than blackmail. If these tribunals are going on down in Cuba at Gitmo, and apparently they are with the new Holiday Inn facilities that have increased, I think, to take care of 4,000 at a time. If these 60, somebody says 70,000 now sealed indictments are really out there, then we're talking. Oh, and of course, the McCain, both the McCain and the Bush demises appeared to be pretty phony. Back in August, when McCain had been claiming to have a brain tumor for the last 6 months or so, and finally on a Thursday he says he's going to unplug the chemotherapy. He's not going to take that anymore. And then suddenly he dies the next day. Well, I got news for you. The chemotherapy kills you faster than cancer does. That just doesn't happen if you unplug chemo and then die the next day. So the rumor being that he had already made a deal to be executed, to plead guilty to the treason and take the needle, and in exchange for him maintaining his dignity after death. And so, they put on this big hoopla for McCain as well, as you well remember, back at the end of August. And so we saw the same thing now with George H.W. Bush. And apparently he was indicted, and one of the investigators produced the evidence, pictorial evidence of the indictment of Bush back in September. And he allegedly had made the same deal, and he was executed on November the 30th. Now, that's something that will never, ever hit the mainstream media. There's certain things that can never be talked about, like the Kennedy assassination when it comes to the truth. People say, well, who killed Kennedy? Well, we've known that for 25 or 30 of the past 55 years. that case was solved a long time ago. But there are certain things that cannot come up, such as the bombs inside the building in Oklahoma City. They can never admit to some of the things that they've gotten away with. 9/11 is another great example. So these sorts of things, I don't care how much evidence we ever produce, they can never confess to those types of crimes. And I suspect that these heroes that they made out of McCain and Bush image will always be maintained there, because after all, they were the president of the United States. So there's a large percentage of Americans that just cannot accept the truth. They don't have a clue what's going on. They think Fox News is telling the truth because they're a little more conservative than the others.
Well, here's the question we have to ask then, Pat, is if the forces of good are strong enough that they could take somebody like a George H.W. Bush, who has been ingrained in the power structure of this country for decades, for most of his life, and execute him, then why aren't they strong enough to just take care of business? And if he was executed by the evil forces for which he has been working all these years, well, that just opens up a whole other boatload of questions.
Who's to say they are not? There were a couple of Secret Service agents standing behind Little George at the funeral, and he shows that note to Laura, and she has a look of panic on her face and turns around and shows it to Brother Jeb, and then apparently says something to him. Now, one writer was speculating that those Secret Service agents standing behind Bush actually exited with him and left. And Bush may have been telling Laura, or the note that he wrote there might have said, I'm under arrest, or it had to be something very, very brief, because neither looked at it very long to get the message and to be shocked. But maybe, as one person pointed out, why could this not wait until he was in the limousine with the darkened windows and to show this wife what the deal is? Well, maybe because he wasn't going home with her. And we did note that those two Secret Service agents standing behind Little George were the only agents standing close to any of the presidents. Trump didn't even have his nearby. None of the others had Secret Service agents standing so close as Little George did. So once again, this is all speculation. We just cannot know yet. But I think some things are happening.
If you love listening to the Dixie Heritage Hour, then I know that you'll love reading the Barnes Review. The Barnes Review is one of my favorite magazines. I began reading the Barnes Review long before they became a sponsor here on the program. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There's just not a more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So if you'll visit www.barnesreview.org, that's www.barnesreview.org, you can find out how you too can become a subscriber to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review by mail, or you can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review electronically in PDF editions. Or you can subscribe to receive both. That's what I do. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. I'm looking here. I know one of the big stories of the year were the firestorms out in California. And you had said that they were engineered.
There's not any doubt when you look at the videos. And, that's another thing about modern technology. It's so much easier to educate the public on what's really going on behind the scenes because of the internet and YouTube and what's happened in the last decade here in the country. People pay more attention to their news on their computer than they do on the TV anymore. I mean, people such as you and I, the true seekers. But I think true seekers are multiplying all the time. There are more and more of us that want to know the truth. Those energy weapons that were later proven to be, what was the woman's name? Dr. Judy, what was her name? Judy Wood, that did the video on those high energy weapons being used at 911. Well, actually, I didn't see them because I thought I knew everything there was to know about 911 until a couple of years ago. But I didn't really pay attention to what the work that she had done at showing the the demolition of the Trade Center, there were steel metal beams that were actually melting and disappearing and dissipating and evaporating in midair from the time they left 90 stories up or 70 stories up before they hit the ground. And this, as I say, I didn't pay much attention or enough attention to that. I thought I was buying the government story of the explosions inside the building, and you can see it blowing out. Now, here come the California fires earlier this year, and we see homes completely destroyed. There's nothing but a foundation there, and yet the trees are still standing around those homes. The homes were microwaved from the inside out. A microwave oven cooks from the inside out. That's what happened with these homes, and these are high energy weapons that are able to do this. Now, with this kind of tool, with the enemy controlling it, you and I, we're pretty much helpless. But if you look at the pictures, the INIWorldReport.com is a good place to see them because I posted a lot of them there. But I didn't take them. I just picked them up from other people who were on the scene and investigating. I can't take any credit for discovering it, but I would like for the truth to be known. And as long as that mainstream media is controlled the way it is, the American people will continue to believe that the town of Paradise, California, just evaporated, just burned up. The whole darn town burned down, which is, they can sell us anything with that power of that TV news. Trees, also, you got pictures of lots of big California redwood trees that are burned from the inside out. The trunks are burning up to 10, 20, 30 feet high on the trunk. And the fire's on the inside of the trunk, not on the outside.
So you're saying then that these California wildfires and 9/11 were very much linked?
Yes. Well, I think the same high energy weapons were used. CIA has always had stuff, years before we ever knew about it. Like the MK Ultra mind control thing. That was going on in the 1950s. We didn't hear about it until, 80s? 90s?
Another thing that was reported was that General Mattis, of course, that General Mattis was a big news headline this year. The thing that I find interesting is that the news media is all over Trump because he fired General Mattis. But Obama fired General Mattis, and they thought it was the greatest thing.
That's right. I know. In fact, Trump made fun of that himself in recent tweets, how ridiculously the whole thing is. But we have to understand, too, there are lots of rhinos in there that they don't like Trump any more than the Democrats do. And I was telling somebody just in the last week that, it's not the Democrats hate Trump. They hate the fact that this faction has upset their apple cart. And it's the same with the rhinos. So I don't think Trump really believes that even though the Democratic controlled House is coming in next month, indeed, they're going to try to impeach him. I don't think Trump really believes, as he has said, that the Republican-controlled Senate will stop that. Because he knows better. There's plenty of rhinos in there that will be turncoats in a moment. And once again, they don't hate Trump as a person, but they hate what has happened, what he has done to their little party. And I'm not talking about political party. Corruption that's been going on both sides. And of course, you and I have heard the term Republicrats for the last few decades because, as George Wallace said 50 years ago, there's not a dime for the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats at the national level. So I don't think Trump really truly believes that the Republican-controlled Senate will save him. There's too many turncoats in there. Therefore, if I were in Trump's position and felt like I just said I believe he feels, then there needs to be some arrests coming down here for all this vote fraud that went on in the last couple of months, because there are several illegally elected Democrats in Florida and I forget the other states, California and elsewhere, that should not be seated, not any more than Obama should have been seated as a president.
Well, in Alabama, for example, when Roy Moore was running for the Senate down there, it just came out just within the last couple of days that the Democrats, in all of this investigation into the Russian supposed election, meddling and so forth, that the Democrats were using the techniques that the Russians were being accused of using in the 2016 election there in Alabama. But but that was okay. But I guess because they're not Russians, because they're Democrats, and because it made sure that Roy Moore lost. It's amazing how the media spins that stuff.
Well, once again, everything goes back to the money. Everything goes back to the counterfeit money, and because they can use it to control anything, and including the media. I had a couple of friends that went to Congress. Larry McDonald in Georgia, who was later murdered, and another friend in Mississippi that I grew up with. I've talked to a few people on the inside. A few Secret Service agents became private whistleblowers. Asked me not to quote them personally, but some of the things that I had learned from the inside that have gone on. And one of them from way back, maybe in the 80s, when I first started sticking my nose into this stuff, I learned the power of the Federal Reserve and the counterfeit money, because whenever a new, good, Christian, conservative businessman gets elected, not a lawyer, but gets elected to Congress and goes in and 6 months later or a year later, you can't even recognize his voting record anymore. He's been so turned around. And I had it explained to me that the first thing that they do is drop a bag of money on this man's desk. And how much? Well, I don't know, $250,000, $500,000, whatever it takes, because they get to print all they want. This buys most of it. But you have some George Hansons and Larry McDonalds and some of the others that come along that aren't so easy. They have to try other tactics. One of these tactics is at a hotel gathering in D.C., little cocktail party. Somebody slips a Mickey into the target's drink. They call his wife and say, hey, well, Ed had a few too many. He's not going to make it home tonight, but don't worry, he's okay. We got him a room upstairs. When Ed wakes up the next morning, Congressman Ed, he's in bed with a 12-year-old boy, and the cameras are rolling. And on Monday, they drop by the Congressman Ed's office and say, well, I guess we know how you're going to vote on so-and-so bill on Thursday, don't we, Congressman? Yes, sir, you sure do. And this is the way they are controlled. And, of course, those that they can't get to that way, a few of them have to be taken out in a plane crash or poisoned or whatever. So this is why I said earlier, if there really have been 15 or more attempts on Trump's life, it has to be divine protection, because just like in the case to JFK and Dealey Plaza, there wasn't one lone nut in a school book depository. There were bullets flying all over Dealey Plaza. There were probably 8 shooters that had him in a crossfire. And this is what they always make sure of. They even had the driver stop the car and pause it there. I mean, did more than pause it. He stopped it totally. You can't see that on the current Zapruder films, but indeed witnesses showed how they did, and wouldn't be much way for that Secret Service agent to jump out of the car behind him and run and catch up and jump on the back, and allegedly saving Jackie. It wouldn't be much way for him to do that if the car had not stopped. Right. So these are the sorts of things that they have total control over these assassination attempts, and I cannot imagine that he has humanly avoided 15 of them.
About the story you told about a congressman basically being compromised. Ron Paul told me that same story. The only difference was it wasn't a 12-year-old boy in his bed. But other than that, he told me the exact same story, and basically, he said that happened very early in his career, and that it basically happens to everybody in Congress, that they're compromised. Mm-hmm. He said, and he said it basically what he told me. He said you do not have to be. He said some people are they're just so morally compromised going in that for example, for example, Bill Clinton, didn't need to be set up. He had so much in his closet already that they didn't need to set him up.
Yeah, Jack Kennedy, same way.
Yeah, but he said that some men go to Washington and they are of unimpeachable character, but yet somehow or another they find a way to put them into a compromising situation or to orchestrate a situation where they can manufacture the evidence of them having compromised themselves. Either way, it's the same thing. And even, I remember one time meeting Trent Lott and asking him why he did not stay in politics.
Oh, stay.
And I specifically asked him why he did not pull the trigger on impeaching Bill Clinton when he had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Why he was the one behind, getting the Republican votes to not impeach Bill Clinton in the Senate, to not uphold the impeachment. And
I remember they restricted it to 6 witnesses or something, wasn't it?
Yes, and this is what he told me. He said that when he was a student at the University of Mississippi,
Cheerleader.
yeah, that he had been a male cheerleader, and he said that to some degree that has proven to be embarrassing enough over the years. He said that there were 2 men who he did not even remember who were claiming to have also been male cheerleaders at the University of Mississippi at the time that he was a student there.
Trent and I are the same age, so I knew all about many of the Ole Miss football players, and then back in the 50s.
Yeah, and that these 2 men were going to claim that he had homosexual relations with them.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, is it true? He said no, but they could get me with a lie just as easily as they can with the truth.
He's absolutely right there. Yes, sir.
And he said it doesn't have to be true. He said they will get you with the lie. He said if they can't get you with the truth, they will get you with the lie. He said the result is the same. And that was why he gave Clinton a pass, and ultimately that's why he started looking for his exit from politics.
Well, once again, it goes back to the money and the controlled media, doesn't it? The media will go ahead and publish the lie, even though they know it's a lie, and that's what we've been seeing going on all year or 2 years now. With Trump, as you mentioned, but that's good. I'm glad you quoted Trent on that, because that's absolutely right. They can get you with the lie as easily as they can with the truth.
So I'm surprised that Trump. Of course, we talked too about the fact that Donald Trump has been 15 assassination attempts that we know about. I'm surprised that President Trump has been allowed to go as far and as long as he has. But I'm wondering if Trump's going to make it through 2019.
Once again, if he's divinely protected, I'm not going to doubt it. And but that's the only thing that's going to save him. He's already gone too far. He's already done things that the enemy cannot take. And so I'm with you. I mean, certainly his demise certainly appears to be inevitable. But on the other hand, if he's beaten it 15 times, and once again, it's not because of his Secret Service agent protecting him.
Well, I'm not just talking about assassination, because now the democratically controlled House can impeach him, and I don't think that there will be enough Republicans in the Senate that will vote to acquit him.
Well, that's what I said earlier. Yeah, there are too many rhinos in there that hate what he's done as much as the demos do.
I've been thinking about this whole situation right now in Congress. Mitch McConnell could say, oh, well, we don't have 60 votes, and so we're just going to go home for Christmas, and we'll come back in January, whatever. Under the Senate rules, all not having 60 votes means is that the Democrats have the potential to filibuster. It doesn't mean you need 60 votes to pass something. It just means you need 60 votes, or else, the Democrats have to filibuster, which, of course, means that they have to speak continuously from the floor. I don't know why McConnell didn't just say, well, okay, you want a filibuster? Let's have a filibuster. I mean, actually make them do it. Don't let them go home for Christmas because they say they're not going to vote for something. I mean, make them stay there. Make them stand there and talk continuously.
Yeah. Well, McConnell, he's been a rhino. He's been very suspect for a long, long time. I would call him a Republican also. So that's probably why he did it. Those behind the closed doors meetings that go on, and this is what they decided.
But, Trump is saying that he'll keep the government shut down until they vote to give him that wall.
Well, that's another thing about the lying media. They want to make a big thing out of this. You and I know that the government totally being shut down would be, the federal government that is, would be a blessing. We don't need them.
Uh-huh.
Now, the socialists do, the ones that are, drawing welfare and this sort of stuff, but that's been preserved. I caught the announcement yesterday of all the things that are going to continue on, like Social Security checks and that sort of stuff. So it's not any big deal that the government is being shut down, like the way the media want us to think it is.
Oh, did you hear that the Congress passed whatever to declare Muller an essential servant of the government so that his investigation wouldn't be shut down during the shutdown?
Yeah, there you go. See, that's what we're talking about. When so much has been going on the past couple of decades that we just had no idea that we were being captured. We're already captured. Trump's trying to get us out of jail.
So do you think that he's going to have any success with this, or do you think that this is just going to ultimately be the beginning of the end?
That's a very, very good question. I have to I have to believe that we will be divinely protected. And so Trump just may be the tool. But on the other hand, why would God want to save this nasty country?
Well, that's the question I always ask myself. We assume that God's going to because he always has, but that's the question I ask is why would he want to?
Yeah. I mean, with the 60 million abortions and all the corruption that's going on. And once again, we've discovered more in the last couple of years, with the pedophilia and stuff we never dreamt. And here, I have sat in many, many federal trials and listened to FBI agents lie through their teeth under oath over and over. And even I, as an investigative journalist and witnessing some of this stuff from the inside, I didn't have a clue, Ed, how big it really was. I got a taste of the pedophilia thing back in the 90s when I spent some time interviewing Mark Phillips and his wife, Kathy O'Brien. They wrote the book, The Transformation, and that's TRANCE, The Transformation of America. And she went on to tell of her history of since childhood. Her father sold her into pedophilia and sold her and when she was 8 years old. She was born in 1957 and 1965. Her first trip was with George Romney and Gerald Ford up to northern Michigan to Romney's cabin up there. Her father was a poor dirt farmer in Michigan, and yet he ended up becoming a millionaire. And finally, Senator Byrd became Kathy's handler, and when she was 18. And people should read that book. It's shocking. It really is shocking, but it's far more believable now than 25 years ago when she wrote it, because we have seen what is going on. But that's the MK-Ultra mind control program. And Kathy was sent to Saudi Arabia, for instance. She was what they call a presidential model, and she was so programmed that she didn't need a tape recorder. And so she would go over and spend a weekend, a few nights with King Saud over there and come back, and she would be able to recite everything that went on. She had that kind of immediate memory that the normal person would not have. It was programmed into her. She could come back, and she was a walking tape recorder. They would ask her everything that they needed to know. So this is how she was used, and she wasn't the only one. But these presidential models, even the great conservative American hero Ronald Reagan was involved with it. George Bush, H.W. Bush, raped Kathy O'Brien's 4-year-old daughter in the White House in 1984 as Vice President of the United States. Now, those are the type stories that Americans are not ready to accept, especially about their heroes.
You had reported this year that there was actually some legislation in place to normalize pedophilia.
Satan's chosen people will stoop to anything.
If you're like me, and I'll bet you are because you're listening to the Dixie Heritage Hour, you like to be on the cutting edge of honest news and accurate information. 26 times a year, the American Free Press newspaper can be delivered to your door, packed with the kind of uncensored news that I know you're going to appreciate. If you're ever dissatisfied with your subscription to the American Free Press, Their guarantee is that you just drop them an email and they will gladly refund the unused portion of your subscription. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.americanfreepress.net.
I was excited when Jeff Sessions was basically shown the door and wondered why that didn't happen a lot sooner.
Yeah, me too.
But, you know, I'm suspicious of anything that was associated with either of the Bush administrations. Why Bill Barr?
Yeah, we can do appointment. Yeah, I don't know. That's strange. I suspect once again that the power behind the throne is directing Trump on what to do. Back in 16, when the Republican convention was going on and Trump was nominated, I said I can never prove this, but I'd be willing to I'd bet $5 that Trump never met Governor Pence until after he was nominated, and I imagine him walking in the smoke-filled room and the powers that be introduce him, there's Governor Pence, Mr. Trump, he's going to be your running mate. I don't know that happened, but I can imagine it happening, can't you?
Well, I found it interesting that Pence has been so involved in this administration.
Well, I think he was their backup. He was their boy. There was some information that popped out about him concerning helping cover up 911 and some other things that were going on behind the scenes way back when he was a congressman. He was a representative before he was governor of Indiana. So he apparently was already playing on the other team long ago. And this is why he would have been chosen. He would have been picked. And I don't think it was Donald Trump that picked him. Well, they also, they slam dunk the vice president. They showed that way back when they slam dunked Lyndon Johnson on top of Jack Kennedy back in 60, because he had already informed Stuart Symington from Missouri that he was going to be the vice presidential running mate. And during a long night on the phone with J. Edgar Hoover and others, they threatened to expose Kennedy's dossier on what they had with him, all the women. He was force-fed Lyndon Johnson. Well, we found out why on November 22nd, 1963, didn't we?
Yep.
And it was the same with Ronald Reagan and Bush. Bush and Reagan hated each other. The voodoo economics that Bush accused him of back in Haiti, and they couldn't stand each other. And then suddenly, he is chosen. The story was from some of the inside investigators that Reagan was actually flown from the convention, I believe it was in Chicago, to New York to sit down with David Rockefeller one afternoon. And Rockefeller informed him that if you don't put George Bush on the ticket with you, the only way you're going to get to see the White House is as a visitor, as a tourist. So, they force-fed Bush. Well, once again, when you control both sides like that, Rockefeller still could have pushed Carter right through if he needed to. And but with Bush and on the Reagan ticket, it took us 9 weeks till March the 30th, 1981, and then bingo, we found out why Bush was on the ticket when they had a Bush family friend by the name of Hinckley allegedly doing the shooting. Anybody will look at those videos of the YouTube stuff, anybody will look at that closely, and I put this in my book, Everything They Ever Told Me Was a Lie, about 5-10 years ago. But if you look at those videos closely, you'll see that the Secret Service agent, McCarthy was his name, on the left side of your picture of the screen, he's taking one in the gut, facing. How do I make you visualize this without looking at it? But he's facing the opposite direction, and way over on the right side of your screen, at the same time, the camera moves over, and there's the football scrimmage going on with about half a dozen Secret Service agents on top of John Hinckley Jr. There's no way he can even be shooting, and he's already held down when McCarthy takes one in the gut. Probably a rifleman at a rooftop. We're not sure where that shot came from, but it certainly did not come from John Hinckley. Of course, Jack Hinckley, John's senior, was a friend of the Bush family's family. In fact, he had been some kind of ambassador to one of the African countries, I believe. And Scott Hinckley, the older brother, and Neil Bush were friends in Denver, and they actually had a dinner engagement that night. John Chancellor reported on NBC television once. They never reported it again, but he said, what a coincidence. Yeah, great coincidence. That Scott Hinckley and Neil Bush were friends and had a dinner engagement that night in Denver.
Well, another thing you'd reported this year was that Hurricane Michael was really a Category 5 superstorm and that it was downgraded so that insurance companies, the politicians actually arranged for the category to be downgraded so that both FEMA and the insurance companies would not have to pay out all of the obligations for the losses.
Do you know about HARP? I had read the book, Angels Don't Play This Harp, written about 20-odd years ago. And I found it very interesting. It was a little bit too much high tech for me to appreciate every page, but it was pointing out the control that the government has of weather conditions. And sometime later, maybe close to 10 years later, I believe it was 03 or 04, when you may remember, there were 3 hurricanes in the month of September that came across the Gulf and were headed for Mobile, Panama City, Biloxi area of the Gulf Coast. And one of them, coming across the water, makes an immediate 90-degree turn towards Punta Gorda and wipes out a few trailer parks and heads straight across Florida and goes all the way out and back into the Atlantic. Now, natural hurricanes don't do this, Ed. That's when I became convinced that their talent and their knowledge of this weather control, has really improved since I've read the book Angels Don't Play This Harp. But HARP is an acronym for something HAARP, and it's in Alaska. And Jesse Ventura tried to get in. He made a tour of it. The congressman, Alaskan congressman that went down in the plane crash in '71 with Hale Boggs. I'm trying to call his name, but his son became an acquaintance of mine, and we talked a few times on the phone, and we met in person once at a conference in Phoenix, and he's way up on it. In fact, he's the one that took Jesse to HARP. They got as far as the gate, and of course were chased away, but they made some films from the outside. And this is secret a location and a secret operation as Area 51 is in Nevada. You just can't go there.
And so you're saying now that this HARP weather control technology actually has the capability of rerouting a hurricane. Of course, as I understand HARP, it was originally some type of a naval experiment that was supposed to be able to weaponize weather.
You broke up. It was supposed to do what?
Weaponize weather. Justice Ginsburg supposedly has beat cancer again. Do you think that there'll be another Supreme Court nomination in 2019, or do you think that she will pull out another year?
If she's not, then she's going to die.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Can her health hold out? She's just had too many incidents lately. So you had some articles that you posted this year on 5G internet.
It's becoming dangerous.
In what way?
Harms the brain, causes various physical damage. It's just one more thing that is not natural in this world that we were being subjected to. Same with the smart meters that companies are doing. They're putting up on your house allegedly in order to be able to not have to send a workman by or a meter man by to read your meter. They can do it from the street and electronically. Well, the problem is those meters are putting out this radiation and electromagnetic waves and everything else that are causing harm within the home. So
Hillary Clinton's Christmas card was a picture of her in the White House.
Oh, yeah.
So nostalgia, or do we read more into that?
I would say wishful thinking, because the only way Hillary Clinton can get back into the White House in 2020 is the same way that Obama, Barry Soetoro did, and that would be with the fake elections.
Like, I saw a meme the other day, and the meme said this. It had a picture of Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby, and it said, one of these bills is going to jail. Hint, it will not be Clinton.
Yeah.
But, when I was a kid and you told me that Bill Cosby was going to go to prison, I'd have never believed it.
No, I didn't think they could get him either, especially with the way he dodged it. What 2 or 3 years ago, or
Yeah.
I mean, they finally got him, but this has been going on a long time, and finally they had too much evidence against him, and too many of the coincidences. I mean, this doesn't happen to 14 different women if it's not true.
So what I find interesting is the hypocrisy of the left. Because the left promotes every kind of sexual perversion that you can imagine, and some that you can't imagine. But yet, they almost become Puritans when, they can find a morally compromised conservative. And I know Bill Cosby, never really fit the mold of the black entertainer, or, he never bought into the whole victim mentality. He never bought into the whole affirmative action thing. But yet, had he been a liberal pervert, I think he would have got a pass. If anything, I think they would have paraded him out in front of everybody and made him an example for everybody. Hey, let's be a pervert like Bill Cosby. Tell us about your book. Everything they ever told me was a lie. And tell us a little bit about your book and how people can get a copy of it.
You can go to patshannan.us and just see the whole book list, or the news channel that you're talking about, referring to, is iniworldreport.com. And we update that almost every day with current stories, and that's why I say most of the stuff in there was not written by me, but rather posted by me because of checking out this, that, and the other, and making it newsworthy. We just think it's the unpublished news, the stuff the mainstream won't touch, and so we try to keep it interesting. But anyway, the book list is there as well. I've written 9 over my career, but yeah, one of the most popular is the one you just mentioned. Everything they ever told me was a lie, and they being the news media.
So what is your prediction? What will be the big news headline of 2019?
Well, now, once again, just speculating, I would like to say that the biggest would be the pictures on the front pages of the paper of Obama and Hillary in orange suits and handcuffs. That would be my dream to see, and would be a great story. That once again, they're so protected, it's gonna be tough to pull off. But a big story would be strictly just the opposite. That would be the death of Donald Trump. I like to believe in the good rather than the evil.
So I'm going to ask you for one more prediction.
All right.
And I may be taking you outside of your area of expertise. But my personal prediction is Super Bowl is going to be Ravens against the Bears.
Oh, I like the Bears, and I'm not as much of a NFL fan in recent years for the same reasons that they can't fill the stadiums anymore, and the foolishness and anti-Americanism that has gone on because of Kaepernick. I like the Bears, but I'm not so sure about the Ravens. This in another week or two, and I might have somebody to go against the Bears, but I do like the Bears.
Where today's telephone conversation with Pat Shannan ended, and then right after I got off the phone with him, I dialed in Paul Blair's phone number and was able to catch him there at his house in Oklahoma and talk to him for just a few minutes about the Super Bowl and the NFL postseason and what he thought about the Bears. Of course, Paul had played for the Bears. And he liked my prediction for the Ravens because he thinks the Ravens would probably be the easiest team in the field for the Bears to beat in the Super Bowl. And he would like to see the Bears win another Super Bowl. But anyways, let's just go ahead and go to that phone call, and Paul can lay out the NFL postseason for us.
Good fun. How you doing?
Oh, good. On my radio show, my last radio show for the year, I'm going to put out a prediction, and I want you to tell me why I'm either right or why I'm all wet.
Okay.
And the prediction is Super Bowl will be Ravens against Bears.
Okay. I hope you're correct. I'm afraid well, I don't know. We'll see. The Bears have good enough defense, good enough running attack. At times, Trubisky seems to be the guy. At times, you just wonder. But I hope you are correct.
Okay, so what was your prediction, or have you not put one out there yet?
Oh, I haven't even given any thought yet, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm sitting here pulling for Chicago and proud of how well they're playing. Ravens, boy, that would be a long shot with that little rookie quarterback they've got. I think that defenses will be able to load up and stop him and make him try to beat them throwing the football. But, I mean, honestly, I haven't even given it any thought.
My second choice would probably be another Bears-Patriots Super Bowl.
Well, that certainly is a possibility.
Although I don't know that the Bears would beat up on the Patriots this time like they did back in '86.
Everybody seems to be, I don't know, Kansas City and the Rams all seem to be beatable now, which they seem to be unbeatable earlier in the year. So it seems like some of the front runners are coming back to the pack. I tell you, I think the biggest challenge is going to be who can go through New Orleans and win in New Orleans. That's one thing that kind of concerns me. I would love to have seen New Orleans get beat this last week because that's a tough place to play. They've got quite a home field advantage and quite a record at home. So that's going to be the tough one to unseat, I'm afraid. I don't follow it closely anymore. You know, I was a ball player, so I had that knowledge, but you know, I don't track these guys like a lot of people do. I'm just a casual fan. I say the toughest thing is going to be able to knock New Orleans out since they have home field advantage all the way through. LA's quarterback seems to be struggling a little bit at times. Kansas City seems to have some flaws now that they've lost back-to-back games. I love the Bears. Bears have great defense. You got great defense and can run the football. You're competitive in any game. So I'm thrilled to see the Bears. I think they've got a great opportunity. They may be a year away, but I'd love to see them win this year, win a couple of them. And as you said, AFC is, until somebody unseats New England, they're still the champs. It'll be a fun playoff. I'm just excited about having the Bears relevant again.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time. Was it 2006?
Yeah, I think that's when they were in the Super Bowl. Whenever it was, they got beat by Peyton Manning. It was 2005, 2006, something like that. And
yeah,
boy, they've barely been competitive. One year, a few years ago, they were like 10-1, and then they had some injuries running back, and they just folded down the stretch. I think they ended like at 10-6 and got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But for the most part, they have not even been in the conversation. So it's nice to have them back at the party.
Well, all right. Well, Paul, I appreciate you chatting with me, and I know y'all had a good Christmas, so I hope y'all have a very great New Year.
Thank you, buddy, and I hope we're celebrating some Bears wins. I'm certainly got flying my Bears colors and optimistic, but unfortunately I don't follow. Being that the career doesn't revolve around it anymore, I just follow as a casual fan. So
okay. All right. Well, thank you, Paul.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Yes, sir. God bless. Well, that is literally all the time we're going to have for our final 2018 broadcast of TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Hour. Let me just say that it has been my absolute joy to host this program for the last year, and I look forward to doing it again for all of 2019. If you've enjoyed listening to the Dixie Heritage Hour, I want to encourage you to order our special CD, although it may be a jump drive, but what it will be is it will be either a CD or a jump drive that has all 51 episodes of the Dixie Heritage Hour from 2018. Yes, we only did 51. We were supposed to do 52, but we ended up launching a week late. But we've got all 51 episodes of TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Hour, and we want to send them to you. All you have to do, go to the www.dixieheritage.net website, click the donate button, and donate $25 to Dixie Heritage. And I will send you a copy of every episode from 2018 of TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Hour. And you'll get to listen to all the great interviews and all the great music and all the great programs over again. Share them with your friends and so forth. Just a $25 donation to Dixie Heritage, and we will get that right out to you. Also, as we go into the year 2019, you'll find that we've picked up a new sponsor, a new advertiser, And we still have one, maybe two advertising spots that we will open up. We don't want to go more than that because we don't want to clutter up the show with advertisements. But if you have a product or a service or something that promotes our heritage that you believe would be of interest to our listeners, I would love to talk to you. Email me, director@dixieheritage.net, and we'll talk about how you can advertise here on the Dixie Heritage Hour during the year 2019. Until next year, from all of us here at TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Hour, God bless and have a happy new year. See you next year.